Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's second quarter 2024 Q&A webcast. My name is Travis Axelrod, Head of Investor Relations. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, earnings calls, and much, much more. My name is Bodhi, and I am your host. And on this episode, we are going to go over Tesla's Q2 2024 earnings call. And it was subdued. You know, Tesla played the hits. It was just like a local cover band. Another way to kind of explain this episode was like a Golden Girls flashback episode. And I don't know how many people who listen to this podcast are going to get that, but just think, Betty, or I guess Rose, Dorothy, Blanche, Sophia, all sitting at the table eating cheesecake, flashing back on previous episodes that they've already recorded. That's what this earnings call was. But I do have some things that, I don't know if I would call it new, but I have some things that are noteworthy from the earnings call. So let's go ahead and get into them. We're going to start with Elon's opening remarks, which for Elon were quite short. It's about 9-minute open remarks. So I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
So to recap, we saw large adoption acceleration of EVs, and then a bit of a hangover as others struggle to make compelling EVs. So there have been quite a few competing electric vehicles that have entered the market, and mostly they have not done well, but they have discounted their EVs very substantially, which has made it a bit more difficult for Tesla. We don't see this as a long-term issue, but really as fairly short-term. And we still firmly believe that EVs are best for customers and that the world is headed for a fully electrified transport, not just of cars, but also of aircraft and boats. Despite many challenges, the Tesla team did a great job executing, and we did achieve record quarterly revenues. Energy storage deployments reached an all-time high in Q2, leading to record profits for the energy business. And we're investing in many future projects, including AI training and inference, and a great deal of infrastructure to support future products. We won't get too much into the product roadmap here because that is reserved for product announcement events. But we are on track to deliver a more affordable model in the first half of next year. Really, by far, the biggest differentiator for Tesla is autonomy. And in addition to that, we have scale economies, and I think we're the most efficient electric vehicle producer in the world. So, anyway. While others are pursuing different parts of the AI robotics stack, we are pursuing all of them. This allows for better cost control, more scale, quicker time to market, and a superior product. Applying not just to autonomous vehicles, but to autonomous humanoid robots like Optimus. Regarding full self-driving and robotaxi, we've made a lot of progress with full self-driving in Q2, and with version 12.5 beginning rollout, we think customers will experience a step change improvement in how well supervised full self-driving works. Version 12.5 has 5 times the parameters of 12.4 and will finally merge the highway and city stacks. So the highway stack is still, at this point, is pretty old. So often the issues people encounter are on the highway, but with 12.5, we finally merged the 2 stacks. I still find that most people actually don't know how good the system is. And I would encourage anyone to understand the system better to simply try it out and let the car drive you around. One of the things we're going to be doing just to make sure people actually understand the capabilities of the car is when delivering a new car and when picking up a car for service, to just show people how to use it and just drive them around the block. Once people use it at all, they tend to continue using it. So it's very compelling, and then this, I think, will be a massive demand driver. Even unsupervised full self-driving will be a massive demand driver. And as we increase the miles between intervention, it will transition from supervised full self-driving to unsupervised full self-driving, and we can unlock massive potential in B2B. We're close to the sort of robotaxi or the sort of product unveil by a couple months, where it's shifted to 10/10, so the 10th of October. And this is because I wanted to make some important changes that I think would improve the vehicle, the sort of the robotaxi, the main thing that we're going to show, and we're also going to show off a couple of other things. So moving it back a few months allowed us to prove the robotaxi, as well as add in a couple other things for the product unveil. We're also nearing completion of the south expansion of Giga Texas, which will house our largest training cluster to date. This will be an incremental 50,000 H100s plus 20,000 of our hardware 4 or AI5 Tesla AI computer. With Optimus, Optimus is already performing tasks in our factory, and we expect to have Optimus production version 1 in limited production starting early next year. This will be for Tesla consumption. It's just better for us to iron out the issues ourselves. But we expect to have several thousand Optimus robots produced and doing useful things by the end of next year in the Tesla factories. And then in 2026, ramping up production quite a bit. And at that point, we'll be providing Optimus robots to outside customers. That'll be production version 2 of Optimus. For the energy business, this is growing faster than anything else. We're really demand constrained rather than production constrained. So we're ramping up production in our US factory, as well as building mega factory in China that should roughly double our output. Maybe more than double. Maybe triple potentially. So in conclusion, we're super excited about the progress across the board. We're changing the energy system, how people move around, how people approach the economy. The undertaking is massive, but I think the future is incredibly bright. I really just can't emphasize just the importance of autonomy for the vehicle side and for Optimus. Although the numbers sound crazy, I think Tesla producing at volume with unsupervised MSD, essentially enabling the fleet to operate like a giant autonomous fleet, and it takes the valuation, I think, to some pretty crazy number. ARK Invest thinks on the order of $5 trillion. I think they're probably not wrong. And long-term Optimus, I think, achieves a valuation several times that number. I want to thank the Tesla team for strong execution and looking forward to exciting years ahead.
So in the beginning there, Elon took a little dig at the other automakers for not making compelling enough EVs that they could sell at higher prices. And that's why, Tesla had to lower their prices. That could be true, or it could be that the other automakers made really nice cars, or at least decent EVs, but they wanted too much money. They wanted more money than the people who are buying cars at this point in time wanted to spend. Right now, groceries are expensive. Gas is expensive. I just went to California over the weekend to see the All Blacks versus Fiji rugby match, which was amazing. $5 a gallon in California. I forgot to fuel up in Yuma. We stopped and ate, but I forgot to fill up in Yuma, which was like $3.20 a gallon, which is still not cheap. By the way, we were in my wife's car, not in my car. It's bigger. But yeah, so I paid almost $2 more a gallon 50 miles away from Yuma than I did in actual Yuma. So the point is things are expensive right now. And people don't want to spend a bunch of money when there's uncertainty, especially here in the US with what's going on with the political environment. There's just a lot of kind of uncertainty. There's not a lot of I wouldn't say people are unsettled, but people are kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop here. So if the cars are too expensive, people aren't going to buy them. And if Tesla was killing it in terms of making their cars so compelling that people were willing to spend any price for them, they could sell their cars at a higher price too, but they can't. They're still selling plenty of cars, don't get me wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not an investor or an analyst, as far as I'm concerned, they're knocking it out of the park, sales-wise, when you consider all the other factors that go into it. But yeah, the little dig at other automakers. Elon does that a couple of times throughout the earnings call. I don't think it's fair, but he does it. Next up, we have retail investor questions. And the first question is on the Tesla Roadster.
The first question is, what is the status on the Roadster?
With respect to the Roadster, we've completed most of the engineering. And I think there's still some upgrades we want to make to it. But we expect to be in production with the Roadster next year.
Right.
It'll be something special. Like a whole thing, I think.
I don't have much to say on the Roadster, but I am curious if they'll be able to actually hit their target sales price that they had when they launched the Roadster, or excuse me, not launched, but announced the Roadster all those many years ago with the Tesla Semi, which honestly seems like forever ago. It had to be pre-2018. I think that's going to be harder for them to do. Before we go to the next clip, I did take some notes on some things that I'm not going to play clips on. I'll just kind of give you an update here. Robotaxi announcement is postponed to October 10th. It'll be a bigger product announcement. It sounds like there's going to be one more thing. The Elon didn't really mention it. He started the earnings call off saying, "Hey, this isn't the time or place for product announcements." He said that several times throughout the earnings call when people asked. But he did make comments that, in terms of Robotaxi goes, he did make comments that it's going to be pretty much the entire fleet would be eligible for the Robotaxi network when that comes online, or whatever they're calling it, RoboCab. Robotaxi is its own thing, but the whole network where you can put your car online on the network and rent it out. Elon thinks Tesla owners, the majority or most Tesla owners, would want to have their vehicle on the network because it would make them money, and who wouldn't want to make money? And I would argue that some people wouldn't want to make money, and I don't even think it's the majority of people would want to put their car on the network. I think people would try it. I would try it. But I think a lot of people would look at the risk of putting your vehicle on the network and say, you know what, I'm not sure I'm willing to accept that much risk for a few extra dollars every week. It all kind of depends on what Tesla is willing to pay you to put the car on the network. And then also, what happens if there's an accident or someone messes up your car or they smoke in your car? You know, a lot of people, this is the car that they're using to get back and forth to work with. Is Tesla going to give you a loaner until it's fixed? Who's going to pay for it? All of that stuff is kind of up in the air in terms of how that's going to work. So I would say, in theory, a lot of Tesla owners would look at what Tesla has to offer when it comes to putting your car on the network, but there's going to be a calculation where they're like, this is, it's either worth it or not worth it to them. I was going to speculate on what it might be worth to somebody. If I could make $400 extra a week and it's not going to throw out a bunch of miles on my car, I would absolutely consider it, as long as Tesla was going to take care of any issues that happened. And if there was an accident or somebody, decided they're going to cut up my seats in my car, Tesla would take care of that and give me a rental or a loaner until like that would be fixed. I think that would be a fair trade, depending again on how many miles it is. But if we run into one of those things where, like when the unsupervised or supervised FSD trial was happening, and the car was running into curbs, and Tesla was like, yeah, we're not going to pay for that. I don't know that would be something I would want to have to deal with. If it got too close and scuffed up my wheels or something, and Tesla didn't want to pay for that because that's just considered, everyday wear and tear. That's not everyday wear and tear for me. So I guess it depends. That's a long, drawn out way of saying that depends. In terms of Optimus, they talk about Optimus a little bit in this earnings call. Limited production in 2025, and those units will be just for Tesla. And then they think that Optimus will be useful by the end of 2025, and in 2026 they'll start selling it to outside customers. Elon did say that he thinks that everybody in the world would want one. So however many billions of people in the world there are, they could sell one Optimus robot to everybody. And I don't think that that's even remotely the case, nor do I think Elon thinks that, but he said it. And now that we're at this part of the presentation, I'm realizing these all might have been in Elon's opening remarks. I honestly can't remember yet. I've kind of maybe did not do a very good job of separating my notes on this. Let's go on to our next investor question, and that's on unsupervised full self-driving.
I guess that's really just a question of when to expect the first. When can we do unsupervised full self-driving? It's difficult. Obviously, my predictions on this have been overly optimistic in the past. So, based on the current trend, it seems as though we should get miles between interventions be high enough that it should far enough in excess of humans that you could do unsupervised possibly by the end of this year. I would be shocked if we cannot do it next year. So next year seems highly probable to me based on simply plus the points of the curve of miles between intervention. That trend exceeds humans for sure next year. So
I have had my heart broken on this question for the longest time because it's never right. Elon, whatever Elon says is never the case in this regard. So by the end of this year, I would be shocked. I would be shocked by the end of 2025 based on history. Full self-driving, unsupervised, happening on the level that Elon says that it could work, right? It might work in several select areas across the country or across the world, but full level 4 or even level 5, full self-driving or autonomous driving, I don't think we're anywhere close. And this is, not a new opinion or a unique one for sure. But eventually, Elon's going to say this feature is coming later this year. Whether this year is in 2030, 2050, or 2070, we don't know. But he'll say it's coming later this year, and it will. I just don't know which year that's going to be. Next up, we have a clip on 4680 battery cells and how that's going.
Our next question is, what is the current status of 4680 battery cell production, and how is the ramp up progressing?
4680 production ramped strongly in Q2, delivering 51% more cells than Q1, while reducing COGS significantly. We currently produce more than 1,400 Cybertrucks of 4680 cells per week, and we'll continue to ramp output as we drive costs up further towards the cost parity target we set for the end of the year. We've built our first validation Cybertruck with dry cathode process made on our mass production equipment, which is a huge technical milestone, and we're super proud of that. We're on track for production launch with dry cathode in Q4, and this will enable cell costs to be significantly below available alternatives, which was the original goal of the 4680.
All right. I don't have much to say on that, so let's move on to an update on Giga Mexico.
What is the updated timeline for Giga Mexico, and what will be the primary vehicles produced initially?
Well, we currently oppose on Giga Mexico. I think we need to see just where things stand after the election. Trump has said that he will put heavy tariffs on vehicles produced in Mexico, so it doesn't make sense to invest a lot in Mexico if that is going to be the case. So we kind of need to see where things play out politically. But we are increasing capacity at our existing factories quite significantly. And I should say that the cyber taxi or robotaxi will be produced here at our headquarters at Giga, Texas.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, as will Optimus towards the end of next year for Optimus production version 2. The high volume version of Optimus will also be produced here in Texas.
I think this was a good answer. We already knew that Robotaxi was going to be produced at Giga Texas, so that's not a shock. But I think that's reasonable. It's reasonable that Tesla would want to look at what's going on in the U.S. politically before building a plant across the border that they might have to pay a bunch of tariffs on, or we would as consumers, not Tesla themselves. Next up, we have a question on Elon allocating resources between all of his companies, whether that's hardware or employees, how that works. So let's go ahead and listen to that clip. And before we do, Elon talks about AGI, which is Advanced General Intelligence, which has to do with AI, just in case you were not aware. All right, let's listen to the clip.
The first question comes from Will Stein from Truist. Will, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks so much for taking my question. And this relates a little bit to the last one that was asked. Elon, I share your strong enthusiasm about AI, and I recognize Tesla's opportunity to do some great things with the technology. But there are some concerns I have about Tesla's commercialization, and that's what I'd like to ask about. Specifically, there were some news stories through the quarter that indicated that you redirected some AI compute systems that were destined for Tesla instead to XAI, or perhaps it was to X, I'm not sure. And similarly, a few quarters ago, if you recall, I asked about your ability to hire engineers in this area, and you noted that there was a great desire for some of these engineers to work on projects that you were involved with, but some of them weren't at Tesla. They were instead at XAI, or perhaps even X again. So the question is, when it comes to your capital investments, your AI R&D, your AI engineers, how do you make allocation decisions among these various ventures, and how do you make Tesla owners comfortable that you're doing it in a way that really benefits them? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're referring to a very like an old article regarding GPUs. Like that's like 6 or 7 months old. Tesla simply had no place to turn them on. So it would have been a waste of Tesla capital because we would just have to order H100s and have no place to turn them on. So it was just, there was, this wasn't this big XAI of Tesla. There was no, the Tesla data centers were full. There was no place to actually put them. We've been working 24/7 to complete the south extension on the Tesla Gigafactory here in Texas. That south extension is what will house the 50,000 H100s. And we're beginning to move the H100 server racks into place there. But we needed that to be complete physically. You can't just order GPUs and turn them on. But no, you need a data. It's not possible. So I want to be clear. That was in Tesla's interest, not contrary to Tesla's interests. Does Tesla no good to have GPUs that can't turn off? The split second that south extension was able to take GPUs, which is really just this week. We're moving GPUs in there and we'll bring them online. With regard to XAI, there are people that only want to work on AGI. So what I was finding was that when trying to recruit people to Tesla, they were only interested in working on AGI, not because of the big problems, and they want to do a startup. So it was a case of either they go to a startup or and I'm involved, or they do a startup and I'm not involved. Those are the two choices. This wasn't they would come to Tesla. They were not going to come to Tesla under any circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would even add that, AI is a broad spectrum. And there are a lot of things which, we are focused on full self-driving as Tesla and also Optimus. But there's the other spectrum of AI which we're not working. And that's the kind of work which other companies are trying to do, in this case, XAI. So you have to keep that in mind, that it's a broad spectrum. It's not just one specific thing.
Yeah, and once again, I want to just repeat myself here. I tried to recruit them to Tesla, including to say, you can work on AGI if you want, and they refused. Only then was XAI created.
Okay, so I have maybe a different timeline in my head on this. So I'm going to give Elon the benefit of the doubt here, and if everything he said was true, this is a reasonable explanation. Next up, we're going to hear a little update on full self-driving licensing and what needs to be done on the OEM's side. So let's say that I have an automotive company, Kilowatt EVs, and I'm licensing full self-driving from Tesla. What do I need to do on my side of the for my side of the deal? What kind of hardware do I need to implement? How does that work? And by the way, in this example, I'm a legacy automaker in addition to being a automaker. So let's listen to that.
The next question comes from Alex Potter from Piper. Alex, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Perfect. Thanks. Wanted to ask a question on FSD licensing. You mentioned that in passing previously. Was just wondering if you can elaborate maybe on the mechanics of how that would work. I guess presumably this would not be some sort of simple plug and play proposition. Presumably an OEM would need, several years to develop its own vehicle platform that's based on FSD. I imagine they would need to adopt Tesla's electrical architecture, compute, sensor stack. So correct me if I'm sort of misunderstanding this, but if you had a cooperative agreement of some kind with another OEM, then presumably it would take you several years before you'd be able to recognize licensing revenue from that agreement. Is that the right way to think about that?
Yes. The OEMs do not move fast. There's not really a sensor suite. It's just cameras. But they would have to integrate our AI computer and have cameras with a 360-degree view. At least the gateway, like what talks to the internet and communicates with the Tesla system, with that, you need kind of a gateway computer too. So it's really gateway computer with the cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity, the Tesla AI computer, and 7 cameras, or not cameras, in a 360-degree view. But this will, given the speed at which the auto industry moves, it would be several years before you would see this in volume.
Okay, good. That's more or less what I expected. So then the follow-up here is, if you did sign an FSD licensing agreement with another automaker, when do you think you would disclose that? Would you do it right when you sign the agreement, or only after that multiple years has passed and the vehicle is ready to be rolled out?
I think it depends on the OEM. I guess would be happy either way.
Yeah, it depends on, what kind of arrangement we enter into. A lot of those things we've not ironed those out yet. So we'll make that determination as and when we get to that point.
And the kind of deals that are obviously relevant are only if, some OEM is willing to do this in 1 million cars a year or something significant. It's not in like 10,000 or 100,000 cars a year. We could just make that ourselves.
Well, it turns out that Kilowatt Automotive, or I think maybe I said Kilowatt EVs, whichever one it was, turns out I don't make enough cars for Tesla to want to license their technology to me, unfortunately. But this does make sense. I do wish that, legacy automakers had a little bit faster turnaround than they do. I wish they could be a little bit more agile, but they have literally hundreds of years of, intellectual debt that they have. They've got billions of dollars in different processes across multiple factories, across multiple units. They're not really set up to be super agile. They're set up to do, a new model car every year with incremental updates, and in 7 to 10 years, that car gets a big refresh, and then the process starts over again. So this does make sense from a business standpoint. And again, I am not a business person, but from a business standpoint, I don't know how much sense this makes to Tesla to even license it out, because by the time these companies can kind of work this into their supply chain and into their production flow, it seems like they're going to be getting older hardware. Could be. I guess it kind of depends on how Tesla develops this and packages it, but it seems like it might be a little bit more difficult than even what they're saying just in the earnings call. Next, we're going to hear a little update on full self-driving take rates, like how many people are actually buying it after the price drop.
I think you mentioned that FSD take rates were up materially after you reduced the price. Is there any way you can help us quantify what that means exactly? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've shared we've seen a meaningful increase. I don't want to get into specific because we started from a low base, but we are seeing encouraging results. And the key thing here is, like Elon said, you need to experience it, because words can't describe it till the time you actually use it. And that's why we are trying to make sure that every time a car is getting delivered, people are being showed how this thing is working, because when you see it working, you realize how great it is. I mean, just to give you one example. So again, there's a biased example, but I have a more than 20-mile commute into the factory almost every day. I have 0 interventions on the latest stack, and the car just literally drives me over. And especially with the latest version, wherein, we're also tracking your eye movement, the steering wheel nag is almost not there, as long as you're not wearing sunglasses.
Well, we're fixing the sunglasses thing. It's coming soon. So you will be able to drive. You'll be able to have sunglasses on and have the car drive.
Yeah.
But there's a number of times I've talked with smart people who like live in New York or maybe downtown Boston and don't ever drive, and then are asking me about FSD. I'm like, you can just get a car and try it. If you're not doing that, you have no idea what's going on.
The answer starts off with that there was a meaningful increase when they reduced the price in the take rate for full self-driving, but they don't want to share numbers because they started from a low base. So at $15,000, at $12,000, people were just not buying it. At $200 a month, they were not subscribing. What is a meaningful increase? If you have a 2% take rate and you bump that up to a 6% take rate, that could technically be a meaningful increase, but it may not be a profitable increase. So I'm also curious, when they reduced the price, did a bunch of people jump on board and then they got a huge spike, but then after that initial spike, where did it fall to? Or if it did, like I'm speculating now because I don't know, but I'd be interested to see how that graphs out in terms of people actually continuing to want it, not just spurred on by a price drop, but actually spurred on by wanting this wonderful product that Elon keeps saying that it is. And he even said it in here, people in New York who don't drive their own cars don't understand. I really have a problem with this kind of messaging. I'm going to talk about that here at the end. But people are smart and they do understand. I have I don't know. I'm going to let this go because we've already been on here for 36 minutes at this point. Our final analyst question is about the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the federal tax credit here in the U.S. for consumers, but it also gives automotive companies tax credits for building battery factories and EV plants and all that stuff. So they're going to talk about that right quick.
I guess I'm going to ask, if Trump wins, there's a higher chance that IRA could get cut. I think, Elon, you had commented online that Tesla doesn't survive on EV subsidies. But when Tesla lose a lot of support if IRA goes away, I think Model Y, 3 and Y get IRA help for customers, and I think your batteries get production tax credits. So just can you clarify if IRA ends, would it be a negative for your profitability in the near term? Why might it not be a negative? And then, any framing of the current, support you get IRA related.
I guess that there would be like some impact, but I think it would be devastating for our competitors. But and it would hurt Tesla slightly. But long term, probably actually helps Tesla. Be my guess. But I've said this before in its calls. The value of Tesla overwhelmingly is autonomy. These other things are in the noise relative to autonomy. So I recommend anyone who doesn't believe that Tesla will solve vehicle autonomy should not hold Tesla stock. They should sell their Tesla stock. If you believe Tesla will solve autonomy, you should buy Tesla stock. And all these other questions are in the noise.
Yeah, I'll ask this just to clarify a few things, that at the end of the day, when we are looking at our business, we've always been looking at it whether or not IRA is there. And we want our business to grow healthy without having any, subsidies coming in, whichever way you look at it. And that's the way we have always modeled everything. And that is the way internally also, even when we're looking at battery costs, yes, there are manufacturing credits which we get, but we always drive ourselves to say, okay, what if there is no IRA benefit? And how do we operate in that kind of an environment? Like Elon said, we definitely have a big advantage as compared to our competition on that front. We've delivered it, and you can see it in the numbers over the years. So there is, you cannot ignore the fundamental sides of the business. And then on top of it, once you add autonomy to it, like Elon said, it becomes meaningless to even think about the short term.
All right. So I don't think very many people think it's a good idea for businesses to rely on government subsidies to stay in business. As a matter of fact, if any business person on an earnings call said, hey, these government subsidies are really important to our business, they're probably not going to be in business for very long. So I'm okay with the subsidies for corporations not really being around in my personal feelings. I have very conflicting feelings on government subsidies and incentives and all that stuff. So I'm going to just say that I thought this was a decent answer. And let's move on to our wrap up here. So again, I said this earlier. This was not a earnings call with a lot of like insight. It wasn't an earnings call with a lot of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. It wasn't an earnings call where they're explaining some process that they had to solve and they get into the nitty gritty details on how they solve this engineering problem, which is why one of the reasons why I like these earnings call. This was we're playing the hits. It was the Golden Girls flashback show. You know, it's reliable, and one of the things that is always reliable is Elon is going to do one of two things, or even two of two things, honestly. He's going to talk about how dangerous it was when elevators first came out and why you had to have an elevator attendant and why we don't have to have one anymore when it comes to making the analogy for full self-driving. And he's going to talk about how certain people don't understand the importance of blank, the importance of what Tesla's doing in this particular space, whether that's full self-driving, robo-taxis, or Tesla Energy. And maybe that's true. Maybe there are people out there who just don't understand. But here's my bugaboo. And I took a lot of this out, but I'm ranting for this reason because it does bug me. Maybe what Elon's saying is true, but the other side of that coin is maybe they do understand and they don't want to buy into Elon's vision when it comes to solving these problems, or they don't want to pay Elon money because of his outspokenness about a variety of different things, or they don't want to pay Tesla the money that Tesla wants for these services because they are charging too much. There's any number of reasons why people may not buy into Tesla's solutions in these regards. And it really bugs me when Elon boils it down to people don't understand. People understand people are very smart. That is not what's going on here. What happens is they don't want to do it for X, Y, or Z reasons. I understand this as someone who follows this very closely and talks about it twice a week, pretty much for the last 8 years on this podcast. I understand full self-driving. I think full self-driving is super impressive. Like it is so impressive. It is a feat. Like Tesla really accomplished something. Did they accomplish what they said they were going to accomplish? No, not yet. Are they charging too much money for it? Yes, in my opinion, they are. But some people in this podcast that listen to this podcast in our community, some people are never going to pay for it, and they agree with me. Some people have paid for it and regretted it, and some people have paid for it and loved it. And by the way, I hear from all of these folks, a sampling of all these folks, whenever I talk about this stuff. This is an individual decision and an individual preference, and it has to do with how much money you have to spend on something, whether you value it, whether you think you're going to use it. There's so much going on in terms of, it's more expensive to eat, it's more expensive to drive, it's more expensive to do blah blah blah. Like there's just a lot going on right now, and maybe it's not the right time for people or for businesses to make that kind of investment, to shell out X amount of money for this, or maybe it's not the right solution. So I'm going to get off my soapbox because we're right about 45 minutes here. I do want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you learned something. I hope that I wasn't too opinionated in this episode. If you want to email me and let me know that I was, it's Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. If you want to follow me on X, it's at 918digital. And if you want to sign up and become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. Now, let's see. Friday's episode will be news. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you on Friday.
Okay. I think that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. We appreciate all of your questions. We look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much and goodbye.